Even though he's been turned into Sauron-flavored jelly, Adar kicks him just to be sure he's dead, which triggers a dying fart of nuclear proportions that brings about a new ice age. But the fun stops when Sauron is hit by a woman driver. The horse flees the scene because he was drinking, and Sauron consumes the woman and takes on his familiar Halbrand form. After trekking across Middle-earth, Halbrand comes across a group of people and asks this guy about his old wrinkly sack. It's all fun and games though until Elrond leaves the High King's high five hanging, and he demands the rings from Elrond. Late at night, the legendary shipwright Círdan awakens to take a leak after sleeping as long as his 3,000-year-old bladder would let him, and he meets with Elrond and asks what's inside his hefty sack. Then Galadriel busts in, a walking reminder to Elrond why he drinks. Gil-galad sings while the elves gather under their dying tree, and I thought elves were supposed to be beautiful. Woof. As one falls to Galadriel, she takes this opportunity to propose to herself. Elrond tells her it doesn't work that way, but her strong and independent delusions win the day, and she says yes. To herself. Meanwhile, Gil-galad puts on the blue one and is like, yeah, this is definitely one of my top 4 rings. In the Dwarven city, Lizzo is shopping for food. Surprise, surprise. And the ground rumbles as she struts forward. But her powers have doubled since we last met her, and a cave-in rocks the kingdom. Not far away, the two Harfoots are passing the time by trying to give the stranger a name, but after hearing Tyrone, Terrell, and Lashquanda, he tires of this game. Down in Khazad Dûm, Princess Lizzo meets with the king and gets approval to belt out her new single.
Dancing like a sea-ho. Let's fuck it up. Where my girls at?
But the city itself rejects her music, and the king has some less than nice feedback for the Queen of Pop tarts. He arrives early to dinner, fearing that his wife won't leave any food behind if he doesn't. Galadriel visits Elrond, who is a day laborer now, and she invites him to her wedding. And he's like, there is no wedding. You're not engaged. And she's like, oh yeah? Then explain this! Outside, Círdan is wiping the whipped cream from the strip club off his face as Elrond entreats him for guidance. He puts his hand in the water, using the power of the ring to scare up some anchovies for his pizza, warning against the danger Sauron could pose with this kind of power. He could use this power to put pineapple on his pizza, casting Middle-earth into eternal darkness. But he really likes all the suckage this tornado is doing. I'm coming! Celebrimbor is overjoyed to hear that the rings have worked wonders and goes to open a bottle to celebrate, as he says. But then Halbrand asks if they're friends, and if he can confide in him. Celebrimbor thinks he reads the room correctly and saunters up and grabs Halbrand's chest, saying yes, you can confide inside me. Episode 3 opens with the best actor from Season 1, Isildur's horse Beric, reliving his show-stopping performance from the end of last season. Beric heads into a cave and finds Isildur, who we can sadly no longer refer to as Wasildur. Elendil, back in Númenor, is stealing seashells from the king's tomb when Tits McGee comes in, sporting the hottest new look, Ozempic face. Later, Pharazôn barges in on Queen Miriel, who tries to hide her stolen treasure, but Pharazôn isn't blind and he can see everything she's doing. He tries to help her pick out a gown for her coronation, offering her red or white and holding them up to her face, testing to see if she can feel the colors. Then Pharazôn and his cronies discuss supplanting the queen, which she'll never see coming. After Annatar tells Celebrimbor that the High King forbade the making of any more rings, Celebrimbor sits down to write a strongly worded missive. Dear King Fuckface. After getting engaged last episode, to herself, Galadriel fears that this delay will cause her to miss her wedding. To herself. Elrond decides that they'll travel a different route, and in the meantime, he asks Galadriel if she's named her ring, and she replies with Nenya. And he says Nenya what? And she says Nenya business, bitch. Off somewhere in Rune, the stranger is looking for Nori and Poopy, but he only finds this goat. He follows it to someone's hovel where this guy thanks the stranger for bringing home his wife. Somewhere nearby, Nori wakes up to find Poopy doing Blackfoot, which is weird, but at least it's not blackface. Anyway, things get interesting when they leap to their deaths. Nori says something that I can't repeat here, and they get taken captive, even though she repeatedly says, "It's cool, my mom's black, I can say it." We then cut to the stranger taking a bath when Tom enters without consent and asks the stranger if he wants to play Drop the Soap. Tom implies it's the stranger's duty to save the world, but the stranger says, "Come on, man, I don't even have underwear." But then some unseen foe puts the black elf in chains. Real subtle, Amazon. However, the moment is interrupted by the Dark Wizard's minions who are here to deliver their weekly bitch slap to the queen. Meanwhile, the elves compromise and hold 3/5 of a funeral for the black elf that died. After a male tree ent, as determined by the tree's nuts, awakens, the female one is still lashing out, but Arondir calms her down by feeling her up. King Doran admires the blue one, while the others whisper,
"You should have picked me, you bearded fuck."
They reveal the famed doors of Durin crafted by Celebrimbor and Narvi, and then Celebrimbor tells everyone that next he plans to carve out a doggy door for the dwarves to use. Back in Numenor, Kemen says he'll be on his best behavior now that his father is king, but Pharazôn says, oh no, if I'm going to be king, then my son needs to be a real piece of shit. You should look into crack. In the tower, Elendil is trying to inspire the queen to action against Pharazôn so she may reclaim her throne, but she just wants to play tag and, oh, she got him. He's it. We cut to High King Gil-galad reading the 13th invitation to her imaginary wedding that Galadriel sent him. Later, as one of the High King's advisors urges him to order the invasion now, the ring shows him a live look at Springfield, Ohio. Elsewhere, Elrond is too sexy for his cloak. Finally alone, she tries to revive her singing career, but even the air and water, the elements themselves, tell her to shut the fuck up. Elrond returns to the High King and tells him they must march to Eregion because Galadriel was right, and thank the Valar she's not here to hear this. She'd never shut up about it. Meanwhile, in Eregion, Celebrimbor is awkwardly doing aggressive dirty talk to his metals in front of everyone. I'm gonna make you so hot, baby. Then I'm gonna twist you around and pound you. Galadriel 2.0 tells him this is a hostile work environment and she can't work here anymore. And he asks what her name is, and she says, "You've forgotten my name?" And he says, "Of course I haven't, champ." Outside, the elves show Anatar, a dead elf that's shown up with "Diddy was here" carved into his chest. Meanwhile, Poopy is asking this Indian if he can charm this snake, because she's racist, and then she and Vivek kiss. Back in Khazad Dûm, Narvi and his homies come across a wild Lizzo blocking their path, and they know that means they're not going anywhere. She's looking for a way out of the water when she gets dragged under and winds up in a staring contest with the sea worm. And the sea worm quickly learns to never enter a staring contest with a blind person. There, Anatar gives Celebrimbor an inspiring speech about pushing on ahead until he gets distracted by this statue's rump. When he wakes up, he finds himself in Bizarro Springfield where the dogs are eating the people. But suddenly the elvish cavalry has arrived. They charge in and then, they stop and just look around. And then begin a second charge for no reason, and we're back up and running. Before leaving, Elrond got a little too drunk and he kisses the bride. Who hasn't been there? But he slides something into Galadriel's hand, and even she didn't notice because what the fuck? On the other side of camp, now free, Galadriel is getting catcalled, and she turns down the wrong alley. But all 3 orcs get taken out by arrows, and Galadriel looks around like, wow, I really am good. Celebrimbor finishes the 9, and, intent on escaping, realizes he'll have to chop off his own thumb. But I'm sure on the inside, he has a little chuckle when he realizes he could still wear all 9 of the rings. One of the raiders asks the Dark Wizard how much he pays for his Just for Men, but he ends up paying the price for his insensitive question, and the Dark Wizard tries to tell everyone it's natural. In the background, the sassy queen takes issue with some of the terms being thrown around.
Dark Wizard.
Elendil gathers up the blind queen to flee the city, but she can smell the writing on the wall and refuses to leave. But she and the other she-elves are cornered by the orcs, who ask for one reason to spare her, and she says, "I'll give you 2, as she starts to open her blouse. Up in the tower, Celebrimbor is growing concerned after Sauron told him he was only going to try and shoot an apple off his head. Galadriel is brought to Adar, who's doing lines off this rock, and he reveals that he's gotten engaged to himself, and all the engagement and the cocaine look good on him. But she makes a deal to team up with Adar in exchange for her ring back, and she's relieved to see that he looks like shit again. She can't have someone looking better than her on her wedding day after all. Eregion burns while the captive King Gil tries to hide his ring now that he's in the hood. But nothing could prepare her for Sauron's next trick, as he emerges as the biggest Karen Sue in the galaxy. And I called it. Galadriel's overjoyed that she can now actually finally marry herself. Then she cuts his cheek, and he responds by stabbing her with the crown, which she looks like she kinda likes. The actress resorts to the blinking thing that she thinks is emotions, and Sauron shows Galadriel his pull-out game, which leaves her floored. So she pulls the oldest fake out in the book and says, "Too slow, chump," before she trips and falls off a cliff behind her. Glug comes in and tells Sauron he should come down and see all the little dwarves trying to fight them like people. It's hilarious. But Sauron is not in the mood. Meanwhile, Sauron is trying to look tough with this little toy hammer. With evil growing in the land, the elves must choose the sword and attack, or the shield and strengthen their defense. And the elves choose the sword, and Galadriel slowly inches forward to feel like the people are cheering for her as the episode and the season come to an end.